We are in a 7-week series. It's going to end in the end of October. And so I really want to encourage you to invite your friends out to this, invite your neighbors, invite those that are connected to you out to this series. I know it will be a great encouragement for them. You know, as I was thinking over the past, like about 4 months ago, I think it kind of happened, about 4 or 5 months ago, I was in London, Ontario, and I was thinking about the fall season. I was thinking about what God wanted to do in the coming season as a ministry, and I was in London, where some of my family lives, and a part of my family owns one of the largest irrigation businesses in that area and the surrounding region. And they've had this irrigation business. They do all this stuff too, but for quite some time. Most of the people on that side of my family seem to be doing their own thing, but I was very interested in the dynamics of this business because, I mean, for years it's been this way, but I was there and I was kind of just watching it, go by. And it's kind of like a miniature version of Duck Dynasty. Anybody ever seen Duck Dynasty? Because you have, like, in this family business, you have my cousin, the son, who started the business, who owns the business, and then you have the mother and dad who work for the son, and then you have the sons of the father who started the business who also work for. I mean, it's literally a family business. And so you know that in family business situations, you're not short on drama. Right? There are things that happen. There are family feuds that take place, not just at a family dinner, but during the work environment, in the work environment, because you can't really separate family from business when you're in business together as a family, can you? I mean, just try it. I mean, it's kind of hard when you're family. And so I was just hearing some of the stories and some of the things that have gone on in the past, and it was just quite interesting because I'm like, this is like a Duck Dynasty, but different on a smaller scale. Or I'm sure there's other shows that you probably know of that kind of demonstrate family business. And so I had this idea. Why don't we do a series called Family Business coming into the fall, where we really focus around strengthening not only the spiritual family, us as a house here, but also the natural part of our lives as families. We have relationships, whether your family actually lives in Ottawa with you or you just have relationships that are close to you in Ottawa. I want to just talk to you today a little bit about all of that. It's kind of all together in one big bowl. You know, whether you have family here or not, whether you're in relationship, whether you're single and you're in a dating relationship, or whether you're married, or whatever the context may be, we all have some connection to some sort of family. Even if, like I said, we don't have blood relatives in our midst, we're all connected somehow. So I want to talk to the single man. I want to talk to those that are married. I want to talk to those that are on a journey to get married. I want to talk to those that have families in this congregation. So let's just start off by just saying a few things here. When I was praying about this message, I really felt like the Lord said, I want to hit the reset button today. And I want to heal family relationships. How many know somebody that needs a healing? You can speak for yourself. You just have to admit it, right? And how many know someone in family that needs a healing? Well, you know, to some level, we are always in need of restoration, reconciliation, and healing. All of us at some level have some need of that. You know, whether you came in to church today and you were arguing with your wife. How many argued with their wife on the way to church today, or their husband? One person. You are a man of God. You just see, he admitted it. He said there's healing upon the confession. There's healing in the confession. So, you know, we all are on a different journey, and we all have some sort of need for the reset button to be hit in our family type relationships or our friendships. Now, my message title today is called Family Values. Everyone say Family Values. Establishing the ABCs of the business. You know, what are the ABCs of the business? What I would call the ABCs of the business are the basic, fundamental, foundational truths that need to be a part of every healthy relationship. Whether it's a friendship, whether it's a family, whether it's a married relationship, whatever relationship connection you have, whether it's in organization, whether it's a business that's part of your life, because that's also kind of like a family. I know it has different dynamics, but at any level, any successful family-oriented environment needs the ABCs as their foundation. We're going to talk about the ABCs. What are the ABCs? What are the fundamental truths, some of the fundamental truths that need to be set in place? And really, what that comes down to is, do we share the same values? Do we share the same values? Do we have the same values? Are we in agreement? Are we moving forward together as one? I'm not talking about, style. I'm not talking about preference. I'm talking about, the way we do things, our methods. I'm talking about really, do we share the same values on the big things, the things that actually motivate and govern our behaviors? Because really, our values in life govern our behaviors in life. What we say we value, what we put our time into, really help determine how we act, how we think, and what we do. So if we don't have values or healthy values and those things in order in all these areas of our lives, we will have breakdown and we will have division. You know what I'm talking about? There'll be division and there'll be discord if we can't share the same values. Once again, I'm not talking about preference, style of music. I'm not talking about, we share the same hobby. I'm talking about the big things. Do we believe in integrity? Do we believe in Jesus as the Son of God? I'm talking about things that are life-altering, that are life-shaping or redefining, okay? Authors that have wrote for years on the subject of core values or of leadership have paid increased attention to the importance of consistent values to a leader's effectiveness over the long haul. How many know that if we do not have these things in place, we will not make it for the long haul? We do not know what we believe. We don't know what we stand for. We don't know what we're standing for or standing up for. We will not make it in the long haul. Because every little thing that comes our way will reshape and re-guide our behavioral patterns. But core values that are set in place of things that we know to be true in our life will begin to guide us on a healthy journey of effectiveness. In business, core values are the organization's essential and enduring tenets, a small set of general guiding principles. This is not talking about operating practices or methodology or systems. It's talking about the things that allow us to do what we're called to do. Jim Collins, one of my favorite authors, he wrote this book called, many books, but one of my favorite books called Good to Great. Anybody ever read that? It's a great business book, but it's also a great leadership book. It's all about transitioning organizations from good to great, and some of the success stories, many of the great success stories that have transitioned, took a business from good to great. It's an incredible book. I'd encourage you to all to read that. But Jim Collins, the author, says this. He has observed that all enduring visionary companies have a set of core values that determine the behavior of the group. All enduring. I love that word enduring because we all want to endure. We all want our families to stand strong. We all want our relationships to stand strong. We all want our churches, our businesses, our organizations to stand strong. So when stuff hits the fan and comes against us, we're not shaken by it because the core of who we are has determined how we will act when those things come against us. You with me? So when everything and all the winds of adversity blow against you and oppositions blow against you and breakdown begins to happen at all levels, all around you, because you know who you are and what you're living on, and obviously Jesus is the cornerstone of it all, but when you know who you are and the values that Jesus has put into your life to live by, you will always win. Even if for a moment you may feel like you've lost. Even if it's for a moment. We all have our moments, don't we? It's okay. It's okay to have a moment as long as you don't live in the moment. As long as you don't live there, you don't get your head down and start to think, well, woe was me, and this is my lot in life, and this is what's happened to me, and I'm never going to overcome. You don't know what I've been through. As long as we don't get to that place and live there, we'll always win. Because we know what we're standing on. What are our values? is one of the number one things that really divide households, and in fact actually divide relationship. But all of a sudden, you know, the what seems small in the beginning becomes bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden now our values in our relationships are totally different, or our spousal relationship is totally different. Now we're arguing not about the little things, about the color of the cabinets in our kitchen. Now we're arguing about, well, I don't even believe that it's right to put God first in our marriage. When you get to that place and you begin to like literally throw out the values with which you started your relationship on, that's when major breakdown begins to happen. That's when the house begins to become divided. And so it's very important that we understand this. King David, even though he had some failures and he paid a price for those failures, but he had a valued-driven behavior. I mean, in other words, he had some core values that were set in his life that drove his behavior. Yeah, he screwed up some major things, but he came back to his senses and still reconciled himself back to God. Let's read Psalms 15. Out of the Message translation. I love how the Message puts it, but it's a very well-known scripture that most of you probably know. Psalms 15, 1-5. It says this: God, who gets invited to dinner at your place? How do we get on your guest list? Walk straight, act right, tell the truth. Don't hurt your friend. I mean, these are all things that I believe were values in David's life. And you can read it in another translation. It actually will help paint a better picture. But I like the way the Message actually translates it. It says, verse 3 and 4, don't hurt your friend. Don't blame your neighbor. Despise the despicable. Verse 5, keep your word even when it costs you. Integrity, commitment, perseverance, consistency. Make an honest living. Never take a bribe. You'll never get blacklisted if you live like this. I love that. In other translations, it says, you will never be shaken or you will never be moved if A, B, C are your foundations for living. Read it in the New King James Version. Read it in the New Living Translation. Read the NIV. You can see it. He lists these things. Who may stand on your holy hill, on your holy mountain? Who may dine with you? Who may connect on that level? He who has a pure heart, who's blameless, whose hands are pure before you. All these different elements. Who's righteous, integrous, all these different elements. And if those are in place, the very end of the chapter of Psalms 15 says, and you will not be moved. In other words, if you have A, B, C in order as your foundation to guide your life every step of the way, when all the stuff does hit the fan and everything comes against you to take you out, you will not be what? Moved. You will not be shaken. You will not be rattled. It's really hard to live that out when it happens. But it's really incredible when you can see what God's trying to allow or to do in your life to allow that to happen. And you begin to see in your life, oh my gosh, like God is literally, he's setting things up in my life right now. He's allowing things to happen right now to shape me, to mold my character, to strengthen me, to really help me realize that, yeah, if I have A, B, and C, I will make it because I know what I am. I know what I believe. I know where I'm going. I know the values that God has put in my life are there to guide me, to cause me to be successful in all that I do. How many are resonating with what I'm saying right now? The question that God, I believe God wants to ask you in this season of hitting the reset and bringing healing to your life is, what are your values? What do you value? I kind of said it last week a little bit. I referenced it, but really, where you put your focus, where you put your time, usually reflect your values to some degree, what you value in life. Now, obviously what you want, what you desire are a little bit different than really your core values and how you live, but you can see your core values reflected in your schedule. If you look, you really can. How you treat your neighbor, how you interact with those that don't believe what you believe, and all those different things, you can see really what you're about, who you are on the inside. God wants to raise up a body that's not shaken, that's not moved. I love it because all these things that David lists, because David was a picture of Jesus, all these things that David lists, really Jesus did on behalf of us. You know that? Jesus Christ, the Bible says, was our prototype. The Bible says he was the firstborn among many brethren, which means in the Greek, he's our prototype. He was our prototype. So if he went through it, he became the prototype in which we were also to live by. The cornerstone, which is Jesus, we sang that song today. The cornerstone that's set in a building is set in place so that every other stone after is set in reference to that stone. So if he is our cornerstone, he is our prototype, we are to walk the walk that Jesus walked. But also, I want to say this, in the gospel, the whole gospel message is all about this. Jesus became our substitute for everything that we could not do by ourselves. Jesus bore the cross because he knew we could never bear the cross. Jesus took the whips because he knew we could never take the whips. Jesus took the nails in his hands and feet because he knew we could never do it. Jesus took the betrayal. Jesus took all those things because he wanted to be our substitute for all those things. Jesus became an orphan on the cross in that one moment where he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? The only time in Scripture he ever addresses God as God and not Father. Because in that moment, the Father turned his face away because all he could see was the sin of you and I upon his Son. And in the body of his Son, every sin that you and I would ever commit, past, present, and future, would be punished in the body as the one-time sacrifice. So everything he did leading up to the cross was also a substitute. Everything in Psalms 15, he accomplished for us so that by grace we could also accomplish it. Not by our own merit, not by our own strength of being righteous, being blameless. No, but because he was righteous. He finished the work. He made it happen. So now it's not by our works. It's not by our doing that gets us approval. It's by his doing that has already given us the stamp of approval. And if we believe by faith and we believe in his grace, guess what? We will always win. And these things will be fulfilled. A plus B plus C equals success. Leaders who are driven by values reap great benefits from the Lord, and they will not be shaken. We have to be intentional about these things. I remember when we first got married, I really valued a few things that I didn't really know I valued that came to light because my wife didn't value them the same way. So when you put two pieces together, or two people together that don't value some of the same things, guess what? Sparks fly. And it's all about how you manage those sparks that determines the success of your relationship. So I had to go through, because the man is always wrong, so I had to go through a process of rediscovery. Some of the men were like, yeah, I get that. I had to go through a process of rediscovery, really. Okay, so am I wrong in this? Why am I experiencing fruit in this area? Is because like I value something, or some of my core values that are leading me or guiding my behaviors are not really what they should be. And yet I had to learn to adjust, and I had to learn to change. And I had to learn to say, okay, I'm joining somebody totally different than I am. I mean, we agree on the same things, but there are a few things that we have to now come together on, and we have to adjust, right? You know what I'm talking about? I mean, even outside of like our values, just like some of my behavior, I was, my wife had a dream last night. It's funny. I'm not going to share. I wasn't going to share this. I'm not going to share actually all of it, but it's just funny because it came to me right now. She had a dream last night, and she said, Shawn, you were really high strung in my dream. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm always high strung. And so I'm like, but she was referring to, in the dream, she felt like in the dream, it was like what I used to be like. So I'm like, if I used to be like that then, and I feel like that way right now, what was I like back then? Because you kind of forget what you were like, you know? Like, I mean, how many husbands in the room could go back and think, man, I was really stupid? How many of us thought, man, why did I do that? We were just doing that last night, actually, on a few things. I'm like, man, we've been really stupid, you know? And I was like always, like rest for me was on the go. You know what I'm saying? Like, I felt rested when I was doing. That's totally like polar opposite to my wife. She felt rested when she was just sitting. I'm like, that's not rest for me. I get annoyed just, like, that's not rest. I get agitated. So, we had to come halfway. We had to meet each other halfway and begin to establish a whole new set of guidelines for our relationship. When we used to go on a trip, okay? Like, trips and small little vacations or whatever for a weekend with my wife, even before I had kids, was like burnout for my wife, because I wanted to suck like a vampire every single moment that I had out of the trip. So I was on like doing mode, like, let's sap the every minute of this small little vacation out. So like, I'm talking about like from morning, we're going to go to the gym, we're going to go here, and then we're going to go like a late movie at like 11 o'clock. And by the end of it, my wife was like burnt out, not enjoying the restful time she's supposed to have. But in my mind, I'm like, this is so restful. Even though I'm like kind of tired, that's just how I was operating. So I had to learn to like not burn my wife out so much on a vacation. You see, because we operate differently, we behave differently, or we live to some degree. I mean, these aren't the big things, but some degree on different values to some degree at that time. And so, growing in our relationship, I've learned to, now when we go on a trip, I go to chill, because now I have kids. So now it's like I don't want to do anything. It's like kids really like helped redirect my revelation on rest. Because now vacation is no longer vacation when the kids are around. It's like vacation is only vacation when there are no kids around. Anyways, I love my kids. I'm not saying, but it's like, you guys know what I'm talking about if you have kids, right? Some of you have kids that are older now. You maybe forget. But when you're in it, it's like nobody knows what you're going through. You remember that feeling? Until you get out of it, and then anyways, I want to say this, that, disagreeing on the basic ABCs of family can cause major breakdown. Let's go to Luke 11. Luke 11, this is the kind of the main passage I want to speak from, and then I'm going to jump around a little bit. Luke 11, verse 14 to 23, out of the Message. Once again, I love how the Message puts it. It says here, Jesus delivered a man from a demon that had kept him speechless. The demon gone, the man started talking to a blue streak, taking the crowd by complete surprise. But some from the crowd were cynical. Black magic, they said. Now these are the Pharisees. These are like the religious teachers of the law that knew everything here, but their hearts were far away. The Bible says that their lips honored God, but their hearts were disconnected. They did all the rituals, they did all the outward signs of religiosity, but there was no relationship, there was no openness. Their hearts were hard. They could not accept the very Messiah they were waiting for and had been believing for when he came, because he came very, very different than their expectation. It says here, black magic, they said, some devil trick he's pulled from up his sleeve. So now they're becoming accusatory. They're actually saying Jesus is operating under the leading of a devil. It says others were skeptical, waiting around for him to prove himself with a spectacular miracle. Verse 17 to 20. Jesus knew what they were thinking and said, any country in civil war for very long is wasted. A constantly squabbling family falls to pieces. Constantly squabbling family falls to pieces. If Satan cancels Satan, is there any Satan left? So this is Jesus talking. He's addressing the thoughts and the accusations of the Pharisees who are now accusing Jesus, because in this context, if you even read it in Matthew or in Mark 3, he had just healed on the Sabbath somebody's deformed hand. And so he's addressing some of these major issues, and he's like, you know what, like, you guys, is it not good to do good on the Sabbath? Do you think it's good to do evil on the Sabbath? I do this, I perform this miracle, and now you're accusing me of dealing with, Satan? Or in this writing in Luke 11, he casts out a demon that leaves people speechless. Okay, there's different stories written about the same story, different views, perspectives on it. But it says here, a constantly squabbling family falls to pieces. If Satan cancels Satan, is there any Satan left? You accuse me of ganging up with the devil, the prince of demons, to cast out demons. But if you're slinging devil mud at me, calling me a devil who kicks out devils, doesn't that same mud stick to your own exorcists? But if it's God's finger I'm pointing that sends the demons on their way, then God's kingdom is here for sure. When a strong man armed to the teeth stands guard in his front yard, his property is safe and sound. But what if a stronger man comes along with superior weapons? Then he's beaten at his own game. In other words, he's saying Satan can't cast out Satan. The arsenal that gave him such confidence hauled off and his precious possessions plundered. Verse 23, this is war, and there's no neutral ground. If you're not on my side, you're the enemy. If you're not helping, you're making things worse. Isn't that awesome? In verse 17 in other translations, we know it says this, any kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. Now, I'm going to call up a few gentlemen here to the stage, and we got a rope here. Okay? So you guys are going to stand back here. We got two on each side, and you see, like, when there's harmony, if you can go on this side, Young, or Pierre, if you can go on this side, just so you face the people, okay? When there is harmony, okay, there is stability, okay? Like, there is stability right now, right? I can lean on this. They're in unity, right? And that's what happens when a house is in unity and a house is strong. There's stability. I can lean back and I know I'm okay, right? You know what I'm talking about? But then what begins to happen after a while is you start nitpicking at each other. And it starts going from the small things. Yeah. See, and then it goes from the small things to the big things. Now they don't like each other anymore. Come on, come on. Who's gonna win? Who's gonna win? Come on, who's gonna win? Oh! See, now that's what happens when you move from small disagreements to really big disagreements. Now, you probably couldn't hear what they were saying, but now all of a sudden they were like talking about, I don't believe in your generation. Now all of a sudden, look at the way, and then all of a sudden it's like, I don't like you. I don't want to have a relationship with you. All of a sudden, everything was compromised. That's kind of how it happens slowly, isn't it? Little foxes kind of get in the little things, and then all of a sudden they become really big things. I want to give you 3 quick points here. Once again, I encourage you to take notes. Number 1 is the A of the business. Everyone say A? A. The A. You know, when I lived in the U.S., it's like everywhere I went, I guess it's probably how it is here with an American in our midst, like, because they say, huh? Okay, so when I lived in the U.S., you know, it's like I couldn't escape the whole about thing, which I don't feel like I even say. It sounds ridiculous when I hear somebody else, like an American, say, you say about. I don't say about. Anyway, so, you know, it's like something like that. Or they'd always make fun of the A, because you'd say the A, you know. And I was actually thinking about, like, why do we say A? You ever thought about that? Because this is the A. This is the first part of the ABCs of the business. This is the A. And I did a little research of some of the origin of the A. It's funny because actually it talks about how, you know, some regions in Michigan and northern Wisconsin and Minnesota actually say this. It's true because I actually lived in Minnesota, and they're actually more like Canadians in some way. They actually sound a little bit weird, but they're more like Canadians to some degree. But obviously we're known for our A. And if you know that when you say A, I mean, you guys don't even notice you probably say it, right? A? You don't notice you say it. But, you know, when we say A, it's almost like making a statement, looking for acceptance and agreement. So it's almost like it appears to be like a question, but really we've already decided what our opinion is on it, and I don't care about your opinion. I'm just looking for you to agree with me. So it's cold out today, eh? Sounds like a question, but really no. I don't care what you think about it. I just want you to agree because I think it's cold. So really we can look at this definition as I'm seeking for unity. I'm seeking for you to agree that it's cold out today, eh? I want your acceptance. I want you, so I'm declaring what I feel about a situation. Or those Ottawa Senators are having trouble, eh? I'm looking for the agreement. The Oxford Dictionary actually describes this word "a," and it says this. It says it's for ascertaining the comprehension or continued interest in agreement. Ascertaining the comprehension, continued interest, or establishing a form of agreement. Really, the usage of "a" may be paraphrased as I'm checking to see that you're listening, following, and you're in agreement so I can continue on. And so my first point, the A of the business, one of the fundamental truths that I believe are values that has to be set in place is the aim for peace in your relationships, whether it's business, organization, family, relationship, any kind of relationship. The aim for peace, the aim for what the Bible really calls unity. Everyone say unity. And it's, you've heard the term before, let's disagree or agree to disagree. So we may have a disagreement on some small things, but as long as our end result is that we still agree on the main things, even in our disagreement, we can still be in a relationship. Because usually when we say those kinds of things to people we know or love, I may not agree on your preference or your opinion on this, but in the end, we're still going to be friends. Let's agree. Let's just move on. We're still going to be friends. We still have the underlying aim for unity in our relationship. You with me? Ephesians 4 verse 3 out of the New Living says this: make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit. Because in Christ, if you are in Christ and you are a believer in Jesus, despite some of your doctrinal opinions or despite some of your theological issues on certain belief systems, whether, in the scripture or whatever, you can still be bound together and in unity in the Spirit with your brother because you believe that Jesus is still the Son of God. And some of the main elements or tenets of our faith, you still believe that those are there and are part of your life. It says here, make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. For there is one body and one Spirit, just as you have been called to one glorious hope for the future. I mean, even if we see how the whole church started, the whole church was born, the power of God was poured out in Acts 2 when the Holy Ghost came like a wind and tongues of fire stood on all their heads and they began to speak in other national tongues, international tongues, the gospel message, and people heard that and it was 9 o'clock in the morning and the people were like, are they drunk? I mean, it's chaos. Something that we do not know or are familiar with is happening. We don't understand it. When that happened, before that happened, it says they were all in one accord. They were all in one accord. Now, they may not have been in agreement on, maybe I don't like what Peter's wearing today. I don't like how Peter talks. Why does Peter always open his mouth? He's allowed, those small things didn't become big things. They were united in spirit, and as a result, great things happened as a result. They had some of the ABCs of the business in order in their life. I loved it because in the beginning of our marriage, I remember when we looked at, we were picking out how many remember picking out their registry, what they wanted on their wedding? It was a fun thing for me. I was just scanning everything. by faith. I was just like this, and it was fun. But my wife and I learned very quickly, because it was a very stressful at times situation, because we learned about each other, about how we really care about every detail. Like, I actually cared about the color of the towels. I wasn't like a disconnected husband in that area. I'm like, I actually really care about all those things. And she was like, why do you care about those things? And so we sought to have unity in the beginning, and then quickly I realized, okay, I just got to let her do it. I just got to let her do it. But I did care. It actually made her feel like, wow, he's not this disconnected husband like some of you in this room. Just joking. No, he's not this disconnected husband that doesn't care. I really did care. And we learned through that process about each other. And then I also grew up and said, you know what? Okay, I don't have to be involved in every small decision. But if we're not careful, those small decisions or indecisions or disagreements can turn into big issues and big fires and great concerns. Luke 11:17, from the passage we just read out of the Amplified Version, says, "But he, well aware of their intent and purpose, said to them, every kingdom split up against itself is doomed and brought to desolation. And so house falls upon house. The disunited household will collapse." How many have ever felt that before, just in any situation, whether it's in a business? All of a sudden, you just started, like a coup started to form, or you started to feel like there was disunity and you weren't agreeing on some main things, or maybe in a church. How many have been a part of a church that's had that go on? Maybe you were a part of it. Or maybe in family situations or marriage situations or simple friendships, all of a sudden you start realizing, wow, we have some major disunity. Well, if you don't deal with that soon, the house will fall. The house of your life, the house of relationship will fall. You know, and in the passage of Luke 11 and Mark 3, really the religious spirit that we could describe that was being embodied by the Pharisees was accusing Jesus of doing something really intense, casting out a demon by a demon. In the negative sense, they were convinced among themselves, he's got a demon, eh? He's got a demon, eh? They weren't trying to figure it out. They were making statements and building opinions because of their issues with some of the small things in the beginning. Because, you see, you got to understand this. It starts small because they were believing for a Messiah to come and change everything for them. The Messiah shows up. He's born he's in a manger. He doesn't grow up or doesn't appear to be very kingly. Comes out of a small town called Nazareth, and even the people around are like, what good can come out of Nazareth? And he kind of looks like everybody else. He's hanging around drunks, hanging around prostitutes, hanging around gluttons and tax collectors, because in that day that was just considered unclean. So Jesus is breaking every religious mold that they've ever had. All the small things. He comes eating and drinking. John the Baptist came doing neither of those things. So Jesus is like really throwing out their theology. I mean, he's breaking their whole mentality right now. Started off with some of the small things, and all of a sudden it started to grow. It started to grow. Now he starts healing the sick and raising the dead and doing all these radical, out there things and loving the unloved and hanging around what the society would call unclean. And now he's really rocking the boat. And now all of a sudden, they have a major disagreement on the big things. Now he's making claims that I just can't handle. So without asking questions, I'm going to make a statement. He's got a demon, eh? So this is the other side of it. And this is where that accusation began to come. And, you know, I've read this many times over again is, you know, good leaders ask more questions than they give answers. And actually, in studies, some of the most successful organizations that have become massive, culturally transforming organizations that are a necessity for a culture, where culture would, you know, are thankful that this organization or this business is a part of their city or region. Some of the most successful companies, organizations out there, according to studies, have said that at the top level, leadership asks more questions than they do giving answers. I love that. See, but the religious didn't really ask questions. They just gave their answers. Well, he can't be the Son of God. Look at him. There's nothing kingly about him. He's hanging around all the trash, and that's what they thought. In society, we're clean, we're perfect. Look at our robes. Look at what we do. We do all the right religious things, and he's out there doing all the things that are opposing what we think is right. So he's got a demon, eh? He's got a demon, eh? Paul warned us in 2 Corinthians 6, verse 14, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. Now, it's not talking about befriending or not talking about in some form of relationship, but really he could be referencing, one of the things that we know he is referencing is the yoke of covenant relationship. The yoke of covenant relationship. It's one of the things that he's referencing. He's also, if you read the context of 5, 6, and 7, he's also addressing sexual immoral sin and things that have corrupted the church, and aligning yourselves with some of the stuff that was going on at that time was really bad, and people were sleeping with their mother and doing all kinds of stuff, and it was just really bad in the church. And so he's addressing this also, but he's saying, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. And another translation out of the Message, he says, is light best friends with dark? Does Christ go strolling with the devil? Do trust and mistrust hold hands? The word for unequally yoked together in the Greek could be translated like this: another of a different kind, or a yoke joining two to a single plow. That's why it's really hard when you join, whether it's business or if you do not share some of the ABCs of life with someone you're joining forces with, be careful. Because it's like two, animals joining the same yoke, pulling the same plow. Eventually, there's going to be a collision of vision, right? Eventually, one of the animals is going to be, I don't want to go that way anymore. I don't believe what you believe, and so I want to go that way. No, I want to go that way. And what's going to happen? Nothing's going to go anywhere. So put that into the context of a relationship, a covenant relationship. Now, if you're already in a covenant relationship where one is a believer and one is not, it's okay, because the Bible even talks about that you need to be Christ in your relationship. Because that was your existence before you even had knowledge and understood, and maybe you were even giving your life to Jesus. But if you're starting a relationship that looks like covenant, whether it's business or organization, be careful if you don't have some of the ABCs together. Just be careful. Walk in wisdom. I love it because Deuteronomy, this is a reference point for you. Deuteronomy 22 verse 10 kind of connects to this scripture. In the Amplified, it says this: you shall not plow with an ox, a clean animal, and a donkey, an unclean animal together. It just won't work. You need two of the same kind that are equally yoked together, because you're held by the same yoke. You're going to have some major problem if you're not together on some of these ABCs of relationship. Are you with me? So we need the A of the business, looking for unity and peace, seeking out and aiming for this in our relationships. But we also need the B of the business. Number 2, the B of the business. Everyone say B. Be who you're supposed to be. Let's apply that to a marriage relationship. Stop trying to fix your partner. Or approach it to a best friend or a friend. Stop trying to make them like you. Well, if they were only more like you, things would be no. If they were more like you, it'd be more screwed up for you. And you wouldn't be in relationship with them because you wouldn't like yourself. Most of the time, you don't like yourself. You collide with yourself, right? Usually you're friends because you give and take from each other, and you kind of complement each other's weaknesses, and you enhance each other's strengths. And so, be who you're supposed to be. Stop trying to change everybody else around you. Or how about in a church setting, or if they just only did this, or if they, be who you're called to be. Find your place. Focus on you. I heard this statement before by a preacher. He said, or she said, let you be Jesus and let God be God. Oh, it's so simple, eh? You be who you are called to be, reflecting the nature of Jesus, and let God do his thing. Let the Father do his thing. Do you agree? Do you think that it's a little bit better than trying to fix your partner? Well, if they only did this, if they only cooked more, if they only cleaned more, if they only did my laundry more, I would be a more peaceful man. And then, or flip it, if you're a woman, if they only worked harder, you just focus on you and trust God with your relationship. You'll have way more success doing that. There's nothing worse than always being torn apart. We need to see the value in each other's differences. We were talking about this last time, my wife and I, and we were saying how we're different. And my wife we're driving in the van. This has happened recently. Driving in the van. And my wife, I look over, my wife's got her face out the window, okay? And this is not because we had a fight, which happens to some of you, right? And the wife looks out the window, doesn't want to talk to you, right? So you see the back of the head, right? So it's not one of those, okay? So she's looking out the window. And she's just enjoying the nature. She's just enjoying peace, okay? See, but if I'm in that setting, you got to see that's how we're different. I'm thinking of everything that I have to do, everything that I'm behind on, the stresses, the things that are bothering me, that are frustrating me. And I'm like, let's talk about it. She's like, I'm just enjoying, I'm smelling the roses right now. I don't want to smell the roses. I got things to do. You see how different we are? She's telling me, Shawn, you got to chill out sometimes. And I'm like, you need to not be so chill sometimes. And that's where our collision happens. You need to do more or whatever, but I can learn from that. She'll stop and she can smell the roses. I'm just like, let's get to the next thing. She lives in the present, I live in the future. It's true. How many know what I'm talking about? She really enjoys the moment. And I'm like, what are we doing next? I'm already there. I'm living in the future 10 steps ahead. And so, it's like the Energizer Bunny. And so when you get together, both of you have to come halfway. Right? So stop focusing on trying to change the person and start to value who the person really is called to be and how that's supposed to complement your relationship with that person. Apply that to anything in life, whether it's your coworker, whether it's your best friend, your cousin, your any representation of family in your life. Let's read Matthew 7 here. I love this. Take the plank out of your own eye. Don't pick on people. Jump on their failures. Criticize their faults, unless, of course, you want the same treatment. That critical spirit has a way of boomeranging. It's easy to see a smudge on your neighbor's face and be oblivious to the ugly sneer on your own. Do you have the nerve to say, let me wash your face for you, when your face is distorted by contempt? It's this whole traveling roadshow mentality all over again, playing a holier-than-thou part instead of just living your part. Wipe that ugly sneer off your face, and you might be fit to offer a washcloth to your neighbor. In other words, deal with your own junk first. Don't try to fix the behaviors of everyone else. How about in our parenting? There comes a point where you just cannot change your child. You have to model for your child, because monkey see, monkey do. You can say all you want, but once they see, it will catch up to them. It really will. So be who you're called to be. Focus on you. The Pharisees were so busy focusing on Jesus and everything else going on that seemed so outside of what they expected things should look like. They stopped focusing on themselves and their own hearts, the fact that their hearts were hard, and this could be the Messiah right now that we've been waiting for, but because my heart's hard and I'm looking outward, not looking inward, I'm missing it right now. I'm missing it. So he's got a demon. He's the one that's got the issue. But could it be me that has the issue? Could they be the problem? In relationships, please be yourself. We move from the A of the business, seeking unity, peace, to the B of the business, focusing on you, being who we're called to be, to the, everyone say, the C of the business. The C of the business. My last point, the C of the business. What is the C? Learning to see the good and not the bad. Because that's how we encourage, right? This can be a hard thing sometimes, right? Because we can focus on all the bad. We can see all the bad. It doesn't take a prophetic person to see all the things that are going wrong. In a church setting, a business, a relationship, it doesn't take much of a discerning person to see all the things that are going wrong. Because most of us have an ability to see negative, right? To see things that we would change. Anybody ever said the statement before, if I was in charge, I would do it this way, right? Well, it's very easy to do that, but God's called us to see the good, because you see, the Father sees the good. You know why? Because the stamp of the blood of his Son, Jesus Christ, has made you good. So he can only see good. The Bible says very clearly, he remembers your sin no more, as far as the east is from the west. And so when he sees you by your covenant now, not by your issue. He looks at you and sees more than you see in yourself. He looks at you and says, I don't see the struggle. I see the solution of grace that I put on the inside of you already. He looks at you, he sees you redeemed, he sees you reconciled back to himself, he sees you set free, he sees you free, he sees you all those things. And so why not, or why shouldn't we see everybody else the same way? Why shouldn't we see the people that are closest to us, families, organizations, people, things that we're doing together as a unit? Why shouldn't we see those things the way that the Father sees them? The good. It's so easy to see the bad. And how many know that once you see bad, only bad for too long, you become critical, right? And you're trying to get the plank out of everybody else's eye and fix everybody else's issue. When you got a big beam hanging out of your eye, focus and see the good. Don't see the bad. My wife, we had a very important, near the end of the summer in August, we had a very important pastoral staff meeting, and we had it out in Manotick and this house, and it was a very important meeting. It was an all-day, actually a two-day meeting. And when we do meetings like this, we just go all day, like 12, 13 hours, just go all day. And it's not just business stuff. We're hanging out. We're also building a relationship. But we started this, and it had been a long time because of the summer lull and some of the busyness of the summer and the School of Daniel that went on in June. So we had this meeting, and I remember when we were sitting around this table, my wife said, because it was storming outside, and it was like storm clouds were coming in, and it was raining. It had kind of been raining off and on, very cloudy, very dark, kind of depressing a little bit. And my wife said, why don't we just open this meeting with just celebrating all the good, because we know there's lots of things going on that we need to address, but let's just celebrate the good. And so we begin to celebrate, we begin to share dreams that we've been having, and we were giving each other interpretations of our dreams, and it was really encouraging. We were celebrating testimonies, things that are happening, what God's doing, transformed lives that we're hearing about through what God's doing here as a ministry, and we were celebrating all these things. And as we were celebrating, all of a sudden you could see all the storm around us dissipate. And the sun began to come out. And all of a sudden it went from kind of a not a nice day to a very nice day. And my wife felt like the Lord told us, you see, like when you celebrate the good, the storms of life will leave. When you can see the good in even the hardest of situations, the storms of life will leave. And when you celebrate the good, really what that is it's Matthew 6:33. This is what she's feeling. She's like, that's seeking first the kingdom of God. Because you're focusing on the kingdom. What is God doing? What is God saying? What is happening right now? And we saw the storm dissipate, and I thought it was really interesting because it's so often we can celebrate the bad without even realizing it. Because we can get so overwhelmed by all the negative, but if we could just see that glimmer of light, that glimmer of hope, that one little candle in the room of darkness, if we can focus on that, we can see that light grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And the darkness, the storms of life end up leaving. See, the religious could not see. They did not have this element in their life. They could not see that they were off, They could not see that Jesus was the very person that they were waiting for. They were blinded. They did not have the seed, the business in their life, and so they totally missed it. It says in Mark 4, verse 12, when they were off by themselves, those who were close to him, along with the 12, asked about the stories, speaking of the disciples, and he told them, you've been given insight into God's kingdom. You know how it works, but to those who can't see it yet, everything comes in stories, creating readiness, nudging them toward receptive insight. These are people whose eyes are open but don't see a thing. Their eyes were open, but all they could see was bad. This guy, Jesus, he's here to like just ruin our whole religious game. He's going to mess up our whole game. He's going to mess it all up. We got to take him out by the legs. We got to get our little crew together. Family business style. Let's take out his legs. I'm going to call Johnny. I'm going to call Giovanni. Whatever. And we're going to take out this guy's legs. We're going to, literally, that's what we did. We're going to get him betrayed. We're going to get him hung on a cross. We're going to take him out. Nobody's going to mess with our religion. That's how they thought. They rallied their troops, but guess what? God's got a stronger army called the body of Christ. He's rallied together. And once they understand that if they can get the ABCs of the business established, their house will stand strong in the midst of any opposition in life.